Hello all you chaos-infused heretics, as always I am Cosmic, and today we're going to be reviewing Warhammer 40,000 Sanctus Reach, which is a new 3D turn-based strategy game developed by Straylight Entertainment and published by Slytherin. That's right, it's another Warhammer 40,000 game, and we have had several over the past couple of years, and I can probably count on one hand the amount that were actually good. So coming into Sanctus Reach as a Warhammer 40k fan, and as a fan of turn-based strategy games, I was highly skeptical to say the least. The game is set in the Sanctus Reach system, and in the single-player story, it puts you in the role of the Space Wolves, and the onslaught of greenskins, the orcs, have essentially taken over nearly all of the Sanctus Reach system, and one major planet remains, and your job as the Space Wolves is to defend that planet and stem the tide of the greenskins. How do you do this? Well, you do this in a lovely turn-based strategy blend, a very traditional mechanical-based game, and it's something that I have absolutely loved from start to finish, and I'm going to tell you why. So first, let's start with the single player. The single player itself is packed full of content. There are two story campaigns, Stormclaw and Hour of the Wolf. Each contains over 20 missions, and each mission probably lasts upwards of 20 minutes, so you potentially got hours and hours and hours of gameplay in the single player alone. The gameplay itself is solid. It's mechanically solid from start to finish. It is a very traditional system whereby you take a turn and then the enemy takes a turn after all your units are done taking turns, and so you have your player turn and then enemy turn. Very simple, very easy to understand. Units have movement points and they have attack points, so you can move and then attack, and it's a very simple system that works really well and is pretty much easy to pick up regardless of whether you are an experienced player of the genre or not. In any given level, there will be several factors involved in the accuracy of your shots. So obviously there's a percentage chance to hit, there's a damage chance to hit, so there is dice rolls involved in some respect. On top of that, you also have environmental factors, so there might be rough terrain that may reduce accuracy. There is a semi-cover system involved, whereby if you go behind a wall or something, it's going to give you a defensive bonus, and it's pretty much what you would expect from any given decent turn-based strategy game. Now, before any given battle, there is a point system and a unit selection mode. So this works very much like the traditional tabletop game, in the sense that you have a set number of points to spend. Each unit has a value of points attached to it, and then you select which units until your point limit is reached. You are not going to be able to take everything into battle with you, so it's about making tactical selections and having a varied makeup and army makeup so that you can basically deal with any threat that is going to be on the board. After you've chosen your selected units, you then go into your deployment phase and deploy your units as you wish. Now, the great thing about the Gore gameplay is the fact that there are a multitude of things going on. So each unit has different abilities, strengths and weaknesses. On top of that, if your unit survives a battle, it will then level up, and as you level up, it will gain strengths, weaknesses and of course more abilities. There are active abilities, there are passive abilities, and there are a multitude of different types of weapons available for each different unit. So you have, squadrons that will have bolters, you have squadrons that will have flamers, you have squadrons that are blood claw, which means that they are focused on melee, and there's a really nice varied selection for both armies, for both the Space Wolves and the Orcs, and it means that battles do get really interesting. So it's not like you're facing down each and every mission in the single player just with a squadron of Space Marines. You have rhinos, you have fast scouter vehicles, you have, dreadnoughts, you even get an Imperial Knight later on, and the amount of unit variety in the game is fantastic, and it keeps things fresh throughout. There are a couple of points, however, where Sanctus Reach lets me down, but none of it is to do with the core gameplay mechanics. It's mostly to do with the aesthetical polish of the game. Now, I have to say, one of the things I said when I previewed this game was that the animations weren't quite right. There were slow parts, the whole thing looked just like it needed a bit extra polish, and that has translated into the final game. Now, there is a little bit of voice acting in the game, and for the most part it works well. It's nothing to do with the actual story, and there's no cutscenes and there's no real narration to it, which would have been real nice, especially considering the fact that, you know, Warhammer 40,000 is very much a narrative driven experience. There's a lot of great stories to be told, and while Sanctus Reach does tell a story overall, it's something that I feel could have been really expanded on just by having, you know, a couple of cutscenes, maybe some narration along the way, and I think that would have gone a long way to providing a better story driven experience. That being said, the biggest issue I have is with, of course, the aesthetics. I think some of the textures don't look that great. I thought all the character models looked really nice and reminded me very much of the tabletop, but some of the animations, there's not enough varied animations. Some of them act up a little bit now and again. Everything looks a bit rigid, especially when you're moving diagonally and that kind of thing. It doesn't look smooth. And while it is not the biggest issue in the world, I would say that it is probably the only thing that really holds the game back from being an exceptional game, is the fact that I feel that there's not enough visual and audio polish, and of course that the fact there's a severe lack of narrative in the game that could have really done something to really enhance the Warhammer 40k experience for any of the players. That being said, I found that the single player experience was fun, it was solid, and it was a great time. Especially if you're a fan of turn-based strategies, it's one of those games that you will have a great time with. And if you're even a Warhammer 40k fan and you play the tabletop, I would say that this game is probably the closest thing that video games have ever come to recreating a digital tabletop experience. It is, of course, very different in terms of there's not as many rule sets involved in that, but it is a very fun digital board game-esque experience. Now, on top of the single player, you also have various skirmish modes, and you have multiplayer, which is ultimately probably where the longevity of this game will come from. Now, there's plenty of single player content for those who want it. Like I said, there's over 40 missions at least, over 2 campaigns, and each one of those is going to last you maybe half hour or more. And then you have the map generator and multiplayer. Now, this is something that I really like the fact that they added, because it is something that's very important to a lot of Warhammer 40k fans and turn-based strategy fans, in the fact that they want to play together. Part of these games, part of the fun of these games is playing with other people, and that's certainly something that I'm glad they added. And this, you know, the multiplayer works fine. It is a bit slow in that regard, because it is, of course, a fairly slow-going game in any given match. So people should be expected to, you know, if you're going to be playing a Sanctus Reach match on multiplayer, expect to invest at least 20 to 40 minutes minimum. I have to say that even with the issues that hold this game back, such as the audio-visual and the narrative issues, I have to say that I absolutely bloody love this game, because as a core Warhammer 40k strategy turn-based experience, it's phenomenal. It's a great bloody game, and it's something that we don't get a lot of, especially for the Warhammer 40k IP. We tend to get, you know, various games that come and go that don't have... One of the problems of the actual IP itself is that we don't get enough Warhammer 40k games that have good core mechanical gameplay experiences, and Sanctus Reach just offers that in bundles. Yes, it's sometimes not pretty to look at. Yes, they could have done more with the story. Yes, they could have put more varied animations in there. But what they needed to get right, was the focal point of this game, which is, of course, the turn-based strategy mechanics. And they nailed that down so well, and the game feels so good to play. It is an enjoyable experience all around, just as a turn-based strategy game and as a Warhammer 40,000 game, and it's just something that I cannot recommend enough to fans of turn-based strategy or fans of Warhammer 40,000, because I think it's just one of those games that, yes, it is a little bit rough on the edges, but at its core gameplay, it is absolutely fantastic. It was a joy to play, and it's something that I'm so pleased that has been made, and made well, that I think that there'll be plenty of people playing this for quite some time. And that is my review of Warhammer 40k Sanctus Reach. Thank you so much for watching and listening. Let me know what your thoughts thoughts on the game are in the comments section below. If you enjoyed the video, please hit the like button, make sure to subscribe and share the video on social media. And as always, I will see you next time.